Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the longest running nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us once again, and I hope all of you are, having a nice, relaxing, enjoyable week heading up to the holidays, and you are, getting everything done that you need to. So with that being said, again, my name is Ben. I am your host, and we have a great show lined up for you today, where we'll be talking with our graphics expert and graphics correspondent, Derakhshani. He is an all-around, very interesting guy to talk with, very educational, and yeah, we have a number of topics to discuss. But before we do that, and before we get to that interview, a few things to mention, including computeramerica.com, because that's where you'll find everything and anything we talk about on today's show. And shows such as today, it can be rather helpful if, we jump topic to topic or we talk about different products. Well, if you want to follow along, right there in the show notes, we'll have everything right there. So don't worry having to remember it or write it down. We got you covered. Also, be sure to check out the social media contest, which is running, every single Friday. And that is brought to you by Logitech. And then the last thing is, of course, the live video stream where you can watch Computer America and not just listen. Still do that. And just another way to check out what it is we do here on the program. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring on our guest because, again, we have a number of topics to discuss and so little time to actually discuss it. So once again, Dariush, longtime Computer America correspondent and, of course, visual effects supervisor and professor. And so Dariush, welcome back onto Computer America.
Hey, how's it going, Ben? Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Saturnalius, whatever it is you celebrate. Probably, I don't know. But yeah, no, happy holidays to you as well. And
yeah, thanks. I celebrate being off of work for a little amount of time, for sure.
That is enjoyable. And of course, as a professor, you get that nice little break before a week later, you're back at it again with a whole nother group of students. So that's fun.
Yeah, it is definitely fun. Just finishing up grading right now, actually.
So, and again, so you join us every... Oh, yeah, you're actually right, because some of our other correspondents have shifted because of the week off. That, by the way, everyone, Computer America going to be off all next week. No live shows, all best of.
Oh, nice.
And
yeah, what are you going to do with your time?
Actually, I'm working on something. I'm hoping to show it off next January. We're actually building a new recording studio. So I'm hoping hoping to get some work done on that and, show that off in the how that all works. But yeah, that's what we'll be doing over the holidays. And then we'll be back January 2nd. So we get a little time off. You get a little time off. But yeah, so why don't we go ahead and talk about what we're going to be talking about today, because you have a number of topics. And as our guest, I'll let you decide where you want to start.
Well, you know what? I'd love to start with the monitor. HP sent me the Z38C. And I honestly, outside of very recently walking around Fry's in the gaming section, have not seen anything quite like this. It's 38 inches diagonal. It's curved. It's super wide, like some of those gaming monitors, but it's also curved, and it's meant for professional use, meaning it's a 10-bit monitor, which means it has a high degree of color accuracy and color depth. It can display a lot more colors than most monitors, which are 8-bit. And if I haven't mentioned already, and again, it's curved, and the purpose of that is to immerse you into what you're doing, and that's the point that I'm subjectively trying to find out is that the case?
Mm-hmm.
And every time I sit in front of it, I got to tell you, Ben, I want to play a game on it. I want to throw Steam on there. I've got a Rainbow Six I've been playing with my son, who mercilessly just destroys me every time we play.
Hmm.
And I want to put it on that. And as far as professional work, my jury's still out, using the likes of Maya, After Effects. But for sure, if you do a lot of video editing, having an ultra wide display like this one is really beneficial because your timeline is so much more wide. And of course, again, games will run typically on just one screen. I have two, sometimes three, but the two that I run are kind of surrounding me anyway. I mean, but there's a break in the middle. And some things like games, they only run on one screen. But a lot of the applications I use, I can break up the little palette windows and floating windows and move them off to the other screen. So I'm already kind of immersed, and that's what I expect. But I love the fact that there's no seam in between the screens, and it's not quite as wide as two wide screens,
Hmm.
but it definitely there's something really nice about not having something in the middle of your wide desktop, like a break between two screens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, no, I've actually been looking at different monitor setups, and I've seen a couple that and right now I'm sitting in front of three monitors, and they're side by side. It's it kind of works, but I've been watching different monitor setups where they'll have one directly in front of them, one on top of that, and then to the left they'll have one set up. I guess kind of portrait, portrait orientation rather than landscape, off to the left of that. So you have three monitors, but it's more of a cluster type system. And
Yeah.
that is one of my biggest gripes about, all these great monitor setups is that you do have that blank area that it does kind of draw you out instead of thinking, look at all this real estate I have. I have multiple real estates I need to manage. It pulls you out of it just a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's two or three desktops as opposed to one large desktop. And back in the day when I was trying to get multiple monitors with OpenGL programs like, the early Maya that was coming out, it was really, really difficult getting to. You needed two cards. It was really difficult. So I recognized the advances in the last 10, 15 years in dual display, but that is the one thing that is I don't know if it's important enough to justify it, a $1,200 price tag.
Right.
Um, for me, because I have two screens already, but if I was starting fresh with a workstation, I would seriously, seriously consider getting an ultra wide screen. There's, one of my colleagues has one. It's a consumer version. I think it's an LG, if I'm not mistaken. He loves it as well. He's like, I can stack windows side by side. The kind of work that we were doing together at the time, we needed to compare two or three pages, web pages, and graphics side by side together. And that was really helpful for him. And one of the things, especially if you're a pro, having one screen is always going to be better color accuracy than having two screens.
Right.
If they're professional screens, chances are the color accuracy is going to be really, really, really tight anyway between two screens. But if you're doing consumer level or hobbyist level on down, there's no guarantee of that. And one wider screen. Plus, again, I don't want to belabor this point, but I love the fact that you could play a game like Rainbow Six on a wider display and see better. So
Well,
as soon as I'm done with all my testing, I'm gonna throw Rainbow Six on there and see how it looks.
kudos to you for being able to put off the fun part to do your work. But I got to ask you that this is, and I was looking at aspect ratios because this I believe is probably a 1440p, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it's 4K. But at least I know it's 21 by 9, and that number always sticks out to me because that is really, really, really similar to widescreen movie theaters. So if you're a movie
Yeah,
buff out there, then if you watch a movie in theaters versus watching it on, let's say, a basic television, what you're actually, what details or what the screen that you're actually seeing is not what it was, kind of intended for with the movie theater. So
right,
with a screen
right.
such as the one you have, you get to actually see it, see content the way it was kind of made, which is nice.
Yeah, much closer to a typical movie ratio is 1.85 to 1, where this is a little bit wider than that, but like the old spaghetti westerns, forgive the term if that's insensitive nowadays,
Hmm.
but the westerns from Italy, 50
Gotcha.
years ago, they were a 2:3:5 aspect ratio, so 23 to I'm sorry, 2.3 to 1. So this one mirrors that a lot better. As far as resolution, it is 4K across, but not the equivalent to 4K going down the screen. Because if you imagine a 4K monitor, you're snapping the bottom, I don't know, maybe 20% of the screen off, and that's your wide display. And I mentioned it's 28 inches diagonal with this curve, and the curve is definitely noticeable. And what I like about it is, compared to looking at my monitors, typically I've got two 27-inch screens. I'm sorry, 132-inch BenQ, beautiful screen, and then an absolutely drop-dead gorgeous HP Dream Color 27 on the side. And I find that it's just a little too far to look all the way over to the left side of that second screen on my left. I got the screen in front of me, and then this one on the left at an angle, almost like a box. Not quite 90 degrees, but like maybe 45 degrees.
Hmm.
And usually my desktop, I don't end up using that half of the screen on the so in that way, having the one screen is a lot nicer. But if I had this if I had this screen at 40, 42, or maybe even 46 inches, I think that would be it. I would definitely get rid of
You would
the
go back
large
to
flat screens that I have. Yeah, I
you.
would keep the one Dream Color because that's my color accurate, and that's how I check colors on projects I'm delivering on. But it wouldn't be my daily use anymore.
Right. So you would go back to one monitor, but I mean that is the point of
I
having
think
multiple
so.
monitors. It's not, it's not just the I don't know. There's really no other point to multiple monitors except real estate. So I guess if you had one
Yeah.
monitor that could deliver on that, then hey, you'd be completely set.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right about that. I don't miss the vertical real estate that I lose with an ultra wide so much as I thought. But I think I would probably still take this curved one and still have the Dream Color as a second display off to the side or more to the side,
Hmm.
and probably not use that desktop very much as the primary workspaces. There's enough room. I just wish for my use it was maybe another 6 inches bigger diagonally to cover what I'm getting used to with the flat screens. But at that point, you're talking a high-end curved TV, and um, those would be great if it weren't for their refresh rate and brightness and all that.
Hmm.
So still waiting for the answer to all my desktop display needs.
Right. So let's actually check out the refresh rate because that's actually important for
For
not
games, yeah.
for gaming, but for what you do though, it doesn't really matter if an image refreshes 60 times or 144 times. But this one looks like it is 60 hertz. I mean, just picture quality in general, you say for just for every everyday use as well as the work that you do, perfectly
Hmm.
acceptable.
Absolutely. I think refresh rate of 60 is perfectly fine. You probably want it higher for high level gamers. But I think it works great. I think it works fine. The brightness, the clarity on it is really important. I think that's the next step for professional graphics is to continue increasing the dots per inch. And
Now,
really, I've started falling in love with the Retina displays on the Macs because they understood that it's not necessarily all about the resolution as it is about the crispness of what you can see. And I think OLED is probably going to be the next step in that because the difference in technology between LED and LCD and OLED is important enough. We talked about it with TVs last time we spoke, but
mhm.
as a real quick review with an LED or LCD, You have a screen that's being lit by an external light source. The panels on the sides, little light bars on the side of your panel, stuff like that. Where an OLED, the screen itself is its own light source. So you get a clarity at a different order of magnitude. And the first generation of these OLEDs have been so impressive in the clarity, if not oversaturation with their colors, because everybody responds to that when they're walking through Best Buy. But the sharpness of the lines is really pretty important, and the contrast difference between thin black text and a white background helps in that clarity. So if you're able to control how much light is coming off of a white, it helps not destroy the little thin black lines that it's supposed to show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think OLED does that better than an LED LCD would. So I think that's probably the next time I would throw my money down on replacing these screens.
Hmm.
But I have to tell you, if you're starting a new workstation, this HP Z38C, and I'm not shilling for these guys. Believe me, if I didn't like it, I would say I don't like it.
Right.
It's pretty and it's sharp. And I thought the curve would bother me, but it doesn't, and it's making me not like my two flat panels
Well,
a
yeah, the
little too much.
curve, and the curve kind of came around. Like the first time I saw a screen that was curved was it was a situation where a company wanted to prove that you could have glasses free, or at least 3D would look better on a curved screen. And
Right.
3D, we all know what happened there. We don't need to rehash that. But the concept of a curved screen really, I think, struck a couple manufacturers the right way. And I remember catching one from Origin PC. They had one last year, or I'm sorry, about 2 years ago, that they were showing off. I don't think it was anything more than a niche product, but
Right.
but in your opinion, you think that monitors kind of act better as monitors with a bit
Yeah,
of a curve to 'em?
with curves. Yeah, absolutely. I think when the curved TVs were kind of out and sort of the rage 2 seasons ago,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I didn't get it. Screens that curve really need to envelop you. They need to overtake you physically. That's why when you go to a movie theater, that screen is curved and it's great. It looks awesome. Because you're far enough away from the curvature, but it's large enough to still envelop you or enclose you in what it's doing. With TVs where you're sitting, at least 6, 10 feet away on your couch, that curve really doesn't do much but just bother you,
Mm-hmm.
But when you're a foot, 14, 18 inches away from, yeah, I guess about 18 inches away from your screen, that curvature, when it's wide enough, I think 38 inches is probably where, or I'm sorry, yeah, 38 is
Right.
probably where you want to be, at least 3 feet, to have and appreciate that curvature, because as you're tilting your head, if you don't need to tilt your head to see the whole screen, the curvature is not going to do anything for you. So when you're tilting your head with this Z38, it
Well,
um,
yeah.
it
I,
makes you appreciate that curve.
I mean, that is what I find myself naturally doing with three monitors, is that I set them up to curve around me. That they're not all
Yeah,
just flat against, let's say, a wall that they're all hung on. They,
right.
the one left on and the one on the right are probably set at like a 15, 20 degree angle. So, I mean, I think anyone with multiple monitors is probably trying to achieve the curve if they don't have it built into their monitor.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one thing I'd love to be able to see is, does that curve go far enough? And I think for the size of the Z38, I think it's deep enough. The curve is deep enough. But when you're starting to get bigger, or for more enveloped scenario,
Hmm.
you're gonna go at least twice, if not 3 times or more, the curvature of this. Which, again, if you've got an OLED that's flexible, that's going to lend itself a little bit easier, I think. But I don't know all the manufacturing or any of the manufacturing
Right.
that goes into these panels, so I can't say for sure. But I imagine OLED will help pave the way for a deeper curvature. So like when you're looking at your screens, you've got, like my two screens, I've got the one straight flat in front of me, and then the other one angles in so that it's almost in line with my shoulder of where I'm sitting. So it's got a nice deep sort of V to it. They can get that in a nice smooth super ultra wide monitor. I think that's going to really it's going to be off the hook, especially for
Yeah.
games. I don't know, for professional work, it's probably no good for that,
Well,
but
part of what I assume professional work to be is, being a level of comfort is that, you're going to be sitting in front of this. I do it for games and sometimes for Computer America. I sit in front of my monitor for,
Mhm.
6 8 hours at a time. And yes, I do walk and stretch, but, you know, having that comfort and just, kind of enjoying what you're doing matters a lot in the day to day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Comfort is important, especially for professionals. And if I back in my day when I was working at studios, if I had an 8 hour day, I was happy. That was, half a day. We're in front of these screens 10, 12 hours at a time. And there's a lot of fatigue as well. And, with, professional athletes or people that work with their hands, they get repetitive stress troubles. This is wearing on the eyes for sure. I've definitely noticing that my eyes are getting more and more fatigued the longer I sit and stare at bright stuff on my screen. Like, for example, my background is pure black, so I can cut down on the amount of brightness coming at me. Um, it's tiresome. It's definitely tiresome. So you want to find something that's comfortable. And I think one of the biggest things for me, aside from the size of the screen and how well I can see the things on the screen, is that clarity I was talking about, the sharpness, the crispness of the resolution, and that is DPI, dots per inch. The more DPI you have, the clearer it's going to be. And typically, in the olden days of CRTs, DPI was at about 72 dots per inch.
Yeah,
That's
you
typically
could
how many
count them.
pixels
Right.
per inch that you would get.
Right. You could
Uh,
count them. You could see the pixels within the characters that you were typing. It was
Absolutely. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. Um,
uh,
so I want to see that pushed. But again, I think OLED is the next place I'd probably throw money in. But knowing me, I'll probably wait until a second go around. So I have no idea if
you
OLED
right.
curvatures on the books at all for monitors. But that's what I'd love to see.
You say that now, and we did this with one of our other correspondents last week. Haven't really done it since, but when we come back January 2nd, about a week after
Right.
that, will be CES, and CES is the largest consumer electronics show, or at least the largest show of consumer electronics. Every single year in the United States, and what they show off there is generally what people will be seeing either later that year or the year after. And you say,
Yeah.
maybe I'll wait for OLED, but maybe, after, say,
Maybe.
January 9th, you'd be like, oh, well, turns out HP just unleashed, XYZ, and I want that now. Like, where we are literally weeks away from seeing the next generation of products.
Yeah, that's very, very true. I remember seeing HDMI at a SIGGRAPH show, which is not consumer electronics, but it's the professional graphics. And oh man, I'm so sorry, I forget the company that was bringing it out. Forgive me for that, but they were showing a an HDR display
Yeah.
2 years before they started coming out in the higher end TVs. And yeah, it's pretty good indicator. CES is usually, just like you said, about a year or
Yeah.
so before they start popping up in the next holiday season. That's what I would expect. So let's see. I mean, you can
Yeah.
report back and let me know what you see. I assume you're going, yeah?
We're partnering with some people. Unfortunately, I'm not making it out there, but one of our other, friendly publications is going to be sending people out. But yes, we'll be covering
Oh,
to
awesome.
our greatest
That's
extent.
great.
So, we'll be doing our coverage. And by the way, just as a side note, you just reminded me of a website called Blackle, which is BLACK, Black, LE.com. And I remember that, like, they haven't updated their logo ever. But yeah, that was you mentioned that your monitor background was just flat black, And Blackle is a takeoff of Google that is all black instead of all white like Google's homepage. So it saves electricity, and it says there, they save 6 megawatts of electricity, just by being black instead of white. Just I don't know. I don't know why that popped in the head, but I will say that this monitor.
I'm on it right now, and I love it already.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. So much easier on the eyes.
It's such a small change, and it's a fun little concept. But I will say that, folks, if you're watching the video portion, we've had the images of the HP Z38C up on the screen. Looks amazing. Last question about this before we move on, performance-wise, because I know that some monitors really do take a bigger, part of your graphics card to be able to run applications, things like that. When they're bigger, when they're higher resolution, when they that kind of thing, they definitely suck more resources. Any kind of negative impact on performance, or is this, if you have any decent graphics card, you should be good to go?
I think you should be definitely good to go with any decent graphics card. It's got really good specs. While it's at 60 hertz, which is definitely very normal and accepted for pro work, something gamers might want to consider, or professional people who are also gamers, is that the response time is typically 5 milliseconds, which is,
Okay.
you can find lower in gaming, but that's pretty good for this kind of monitor.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, if you put someone in front of a 5 millisecond monitor, let's say 3 or 4 years ago, they'd say, oh, that's one of the best in the industry. Nowadays, I've seen, I think I saw a 1 once, and 2s
Oh, wow.
aren't too
2s,
uncommon.
I see. Yeah, they're more common for sure.
2s aren't one I've heard of, but 5 is, completely fine. So not too bad. And obviously, it's $1,200. This is going to be presumably your main monitor. This is not something that you set off to the side. And all in all, I mean, this is a very nice looking monitor. I don't think there's any other way to put it.
Yeah, it's pretty, and using it, it's definitely pretty.
Right.
I would recommend people check into it.
Right. So,
For sure.
yeah. And so with that being said, one thing that I didn't mention before the show, but I wanted to see if you had any comment on it, because a lot of people in your industry, they are fans of Macs, Mac computers, things like that. And I think since the last time that you were on the show with us, Apple did unveil their new iMac Pro. And so I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the iMac Pro, or if you want to talk about that a little bit later, but yeah, they finally updated their high-end tippy top of their computer line, and it's been a couple years coming, and it looks pretty darn good. But one thing I was surprised was it's not curved, and I've seen a lot of other, when you start to get into the multi-thousands of dollars for all-in-ones, those are generally curved, and Apple is not. So I just thought that was a bit strange. But I did want to see if you wanted to shift the conversation real quickly to the iMac Pro.
Yeah, no, I'd love to talk about the iMac Pro, and it is a very nice machine. It's very beautiful. Its screen at 5K at 27 inches pushes exactly what I was talking about. The whole idea of a higher DPI makes for a much nicer, crisper display, and that's what I absolutely love about the iMac Retina displays. The iMac Pro, I think, is gorgeous. It's basically $5,000. I think I think if you're a professional, you don't go the iMac Pro route.
Okay.
If you're filling out a lab where you're teaching this kind of stuff, potentially there's a lot of good upsides to it. But I think honestly, in my opinion, for professional use, you're going to want something that can easily be swapped out, upgraded. You want something with a long shelf life, and I just don't see it with the iMacs. I think having a traditional box, or even a virtual machine connection to some room somewhere, and just the best screen that you can get is the way to go. I just don't like the fact that your computer is tied to your screen. That computer is going to last you a few years for sure in good, happy professional work. 2 years minimum. And I think maybe 3, 4, you can squeeze more out of it. but that
And
screen, that
and by the way, Dariush, we're going to stop right there. Music means we're going to take a break. And everyone, we'll be right back. Dariush Derakhshani, computer graphics expert, and more Computer America right after this.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 31 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And yeah, we are talking with Mr. Dariush Derakhshani. And yeah, I just wanted to deviate really quickly because, he was gushing about, this monitor from HP. And, it's no secret that Macs, they do have, or at least they do put a lot of emphasis on their screens, how they look, their crispness, things like that. And so I wanted to see what you thought of the latest iMac Pro. And, this is something that I think that the Mac community, or at least the higher-end Mac community, and really the PC community, they've, kind of picked on Mac for, which is their non-customize, not being able to customize, upgrade, or change anything out. Mac is very all-inclusive, and, if you wanted to swap something out, it's kind of like upgrading a graphics card in a laptop. It just simply won't fit. It's just not designed for upgrades, and that seemed to be your big problem.
Yeah, but I mean that's also the part of the major draw towards these products is that they just work. You plug it in, it's elegant, it's simple, it works, and I think that's a huge cachet that the Apple has, and bravo. It is not an easy thing to have. And recently I switched from iPhone over to the Samsung S8, and every now and then I've got this kind of whimper of, well, it was a little simpler to do that on the iPhone. However, that's also drowned out by a whole lot of, oh, I could never have done that on my iPhone the way I wanted to.
Right.
So, but I have to hand it to Apple. They make just a really tight machine. I think for pro work, I would much rather have that beautiful screen as just a screen. So inevitably, in 3 years, give or take 4, when my company needs to upgrade the hardware, we can just swap it out, and that screen is most likely still good to go for another generation or two of upgrade cycles. And this is where the longer term investment is important for companies and studios. If you're leasing equipment, I think that's different. A lot of places will lease equipment. That's something to think about. But that's my gripe with it. And I think honestly, Apple has been, and I'm going to get some hate mail for this, it's been a disappointment for a lot of professionals that I know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's professionally, it's sort of dropped the ball, and they admitted it. So with the Trash Can Pro and being late upgrading that, and just the fact that a lot of people I know that have these machines in quantity are regretting having these machines. And I don't think the iMac Pro is going to be an answer to a lot of places. Unfortunately, I think graphic design, hands down, stuff moves faster on a Mac. A lot of Photoshop optimizations and Illustrator and so forth. So I don't think that's going to change that market. And again, that 5K 27-inch, it's a really tight screen. It's really, really something that you'll be okay staring at for a 10-hour day. But I wish it was different. I wish it was two separate things, and I think this is a misstep.
Well, I think your hate mail that you're going to get is, probably just going to be people agreeing with you. I mean, you said it, and I think a lot of people have only agreed that I've heard that Apple folk, they were making money hand over fist when it came to their mobile division. That the other parts of the company that maybe weren't as, profit margin heavy, they were pushed to the wayside. They just weren't as important to Apple, and Apple admitted that. And this iMac Pro, it does look great. And, by the way, one thing I always like to do, I like to go in and fully fully optimize it. For $14,000, you're going to get a very, very good computer. But it does make sense, at least in the professional field, where I've always assumed Macs to be one of the most popular brands in the professional world. You're right that, just from generation to generation, it doesn't make much sense to invest 14,000 when you could go PC and you can invest 14,000 and be able to keep some of that into the next generation. Whereas Apple,
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah.
And just real quick, I mean, you said that you like the screen. Would you like to see an Apple just simply monitor? Not built in, all in one, or anything like that, but just an Apple branded, Apple built monitor. Would that be something you'd be interested in?
Oh no, absolutely, and I think they definitely have those around that are
I
that
haven't
are
seen them.
well, new generation. I don't know if they're going to be around the corner or not, but the cinema display, the Pro Cinema display, they're outdated
Mm-hmm.
right now. But the will and the manufacturing of those was there. You could, back in the day where the Mac Pro was still either garbage can or the tower,
Right.
they still ran really beautiful Pro Cinema displays. So I'm wondering with the iMac Pro, the whole Mac Pro line, is it moving to the iMac? And if so, does that mean they're not going to do any displays? But yeah, I would like to see this as a standalone display. It's a very good, solid panel,
They
and I
haven't
think
made those, and just real quick, I mean, they haven't made those separate cinema displays for almost 10 years. It's been a decade. 2008, as I understand, was really the last time that they did that. I mean, it's been a good long time since they came out with a standalone monitor.
are you sure about that? I'm not.
I'm looking at
That's
let's see, Apple Cinema 30-inch HD flat display, and the last one I found was from 2008. If you have one earlier, or I'm sorry, more recent, that's great.
Hmm,
But the point is that
wow, that's a long time.
yeah, they don't market it at all, but it is a major selling point for their computers is that they do look good.
Yeah, no, they do. They do look good. They are good panels and they're well done. Apple knows how to put a product together almost all of the time. I mean, they get accessories wrong constantly. But I think as far as the machine itself, the way it looks, how it functions, its user interface, all of those are really, you know, tight, really good. I can't get used to OS X. I'm so used to Windows at this point, but it's a lot better than Apple OS from before it went to Unix. But I think you're right. A lot of professionals still are drawn to these machines because they are good machines. But I think there's a level of loyalty and emotion that's still clouding some judgment. And
Fan,
I
fan
honestly, I
yeah.
don't, aside from some schools and training centers and graphic design houses, I just don't understand an iMac Pro. I don't get. It's a nice iMac, but positioning it to be professional level, I think that's wrong. I think it's a misstep, and I don't buy into it. Just put out a really nice iMac. I mean, and that's fine. But I think going into the pro world for all-in-ones, I think it's a
Yeah.
virtual dead end.
Well, yeah, and it may very well be, and hopefully soon Apple will come to their senses and realize that smartphones, there's just not a lot of innovation that you can do there. They've stripped almost every single button off of the new iPhone 10, and at some point they're gonna have to say, well, maybe computers need to be looked at again. But and by the way, you're right. The last one, Apple on their website does show was one from 2011. So Apple Thunderbolt display.
The Thunderbolt display.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. I said Pro
Yeah.
Cinema, but yeah, it's
Right.
the Thunderbolt
Was
moniker now.
Yeah, it was 2011. So that's 7 years ago. My bad. Not a decade. So
But
it's
still, that's a long time. It
yeah.
is definitely a long time.
It is. It is. So, but with that being said, let's go from display technology to something that would power your display. And if you wouldn't mind, if we could go to the NVIDIA Titan V, because this is something that was announced, it was launched, and like compared to the Titan XP that was recently announced and things like this, it just didn't receive a lot of huzzas. It was just kind of, oh, by the way, they now also offer a Titan V. So would you like to kind of walk us through what a Titan V is?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It's bigger. It's badassier than the Titan XP. It's just got more processing capability. Where the XP, so I have the Titan X in my son's machine. That's got about 3,000 CUDA cores. The XP jumped up to 3840 CUDA cores. That's a big increase.
Right.
The Titan V goes bonkers bananas with 5,120 cores. So it's a really big jump from the XP. I wouldn't say it's quite double the amount of the Titan X, but it's close to that to that multiplier. So that's one of the things about it. It's just a bigger, beefier, but it's 3 times the price as well. But it does introduce tensor cores as opposed to CUDA cores. So that's a different type of core that is more for higher end calculations, I guess you could say.
Machine learning and like the terms that I've seen popped up around this thing were there are graphics which gamers would like, and the Titan line of graphics cards was traditionally like oh, you want to waste money, here you go, here's the best card that you can possibly buy, and it'll be great for graphics. But what the Titan V and what I've seen kind of bantered around about it is that computing or compute power
Yes.
rather than graphics
Yeah,
power.
That's exactly right. This is a compute platform. It's not a video platform. I mean, it is a video platform. Don't get me wrong.
Yes, it is.
It's a hell of a card, but it's meant for compute cycles, and I think a lot of it is for the research sector, for the development sector. There's some new processing methodologies or workflows, I guess, that the tensor core will be speedier at. And like you said, machine learning, neural networks, deep learning basically is being able to take a matrix to another dimension and be able to calculate that kind of computational need more focused, which will give you a faster result. That's where the tensor cores are all about. So it's not for, hey, I want my game to run faster. If you want a faster game, the 1080 Ti or the GTX Titan X or the XP, they're all about $1,000. The 1080 Ti is what, 700 or 600?
Yeah,
But
yeah, right.
that's where you want to be. So if you've got some holiday money burning a hole in your pocket and you want to upgrade your graphics, that's where you go. Titan V is more for, Professor McDuck in the lab, trying to basically deliver Skynet to us all.
Yeah.
That's what that's for.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, that was the feeling that I got from a lot of benchmarking publications out there as well. Was that if you're looking for the best graphics card, the Titan V is undoubtedly that. But a lot of people, and 99.9% of us, we have to look at the not just is it the best, but the cost to performance ratio. And the Titan V throws that completely off. It's
completely off that curve.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's not worth it.
You're basically, what a turducken is for Thanksgiving?
Let's see, it's turkey, duck, chicken, all stuffed into whichever one is smaller, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that's kind of what you're doing with the Titan V. You're stuffing another computer in your computer. This is more specific, more focused kind of compute power. But where it really gets, I imagine, a lot of its speed is not just from its core clock, which is actually slower than the XP,
Hmm.
but it's from its amazing memory throughput, where the bandwidth on my Titan X is 336
Right.
gigabytes per second. The XP is a whopping 547. The V takes it up to over 650 gigabytes per second. That's huge. That's, again, almost double what the Titan X is. It's just still the same amount of memory, but that bandwidth and the fact that its cache, its processor cache, is 1.5 times what the other Titan X and XP are. That's where it's getting a lot of its power from,
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
that memory. When you've got fast memory, you can calculate a lot really quickly. It's still only 12 gigs, but that's what you're doing. You're shoving a computer inside your computer.
Very, very well said. And I will say that, for a little bit more than the $3,000, if you're looking to spend that kind of thing, the Titan XP, which is, again, up until about 2 weeks ago, was the best of the best. Um, yeah, you could buy three of them, SLI them together, and you'd probably, as far as graphics and gaming and virtual reality, which I think is a lot. It's kind of the next thing that people are trying to design around, is how to really, first of all, get virtual reality to the customer, and then how do we optimize virtual reality? So I think that's what some of what they're doing nowadays is. But anyways, $600 more, you get three Titan XPs, which would probably blow this thing out of the water in terms of performance as well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, you can get two Titan XPs and still have enough money for
yeah.
a 30-inch monitor.
Right, right, yeah. It's but the Titan V, it certainly is something to kind of look at and go, well, imagine if, and $6,000 later, because they only let you buy
Right.
two. Artificial scarcity, you got to have that. And yeah, this thing, like, it's crazy, but the money just doesn't justify it. So I think that's why it was announced. They made some fanfare about it, but it died pretty quickly because everyone knows this is probably for server farms. This is for research
Yeah.
supercomputers, things like that. It's just not for us.
Absolutely. But I think it's cool that they're putting this out and saying, "Hey, look how powerful we can make this hardware." And you can hold it in one hand, whereas to get that much power, you're in at least an actual PC. Um, so that's pretty impressive, and I think it goes a long way in showing us NVIDIA's longer term goal, which is just to keep innovating and pushing PC power. But, and this is a point I really have to congratulate these guys and girls on, is that they're focused. They know that it takes a different type of computing to figure one thing out, and it takes a different kind of computing to figure something else out. So being targeted as opposed to just a brute force methodology in advancement, I think is really smart.
Something that at this moment, let's see, NVIDIA, I'm sorry, not NVIDIA, Intel said that they were going to start getting into the graphics market probably sometime next year. I would not be surprised to see NVIDIA come out with some mid-range consumer graphics cards, but something that currently only NVIDIA does, and that is, really target not only the high-end gamer, but, that's how, that's why their stock over the past, I'd say, 2 years or 1 year went from like $38 a share to $220 a share. They are
Yeah,
focused on getting, machine learning, artificial intelligence, self-driving cars. They're focused on getting multiple products for multiple fields, and they're capitalizing on almost every single one of those fields. It's very cool of
absolutely.
NVIDIA.
Yeah, it's a very well-run company, I have to admit. Unfortunately, all of my stock picks end up going the other way, where they're going from 200 down to 30. So
Absolutely.
you got to admire a company that can pull that off in a few years.
Right. So and again, I'm going to be excited to see what Intel does with graphics cards themselves, because they've always been processors and they've had a nice little friendship with Nvidia. It'll be interesting to see what happens when Intel enters the market as well, as a competitor and not just a complement. So see what happens there. So I think in these last 10 minutes, we should, well, I kind of want to get this one because I did not see anything about this. We didn't even talk about this, but the implications of, photo manipulation, it can matter a lot because, not to bring politics into this, but fake news, it happens, it has happened in the past. And I've seen Photoshops, photo editing, and some of them not even created by humans but created by artificial intelligence that is so close to reality that if you saw it in a thumbnail you would not even question its authenticity. So you found one here, photo manipulation, but it's turning a photo into multiple instances of that photo. Science News, why did this catch your eye?
It's funny. Yeah, I found this article on Science Daily and I was taking a look at what it means. The article's named Turning Photos into an Interactive Experience. Basically, what it's doing is it takes a still photo and it warps the image to give expression to a face. So let's say we take a picture of you, Ben, and put it up online. This could make that one still image turn into an animation of you smiling when you like something or frowning when you don't like something.
Hmm.
And the very basics of it is just warping, where I draw. Um, Consider this: you've got an image of your face up, and I take a little bendy straw and I put it across where your lips are, and where how I bend that straw to make like a smiley arc, it pulls those pixels up, and it makes you look like you've got a smile. Now, simple warping wouldn't look good at all when you do that. So this is a lot more than just simple warping, but they're working on ways of taking single images and giving animation to them. And their first area of start is basically making still faces look like they're having emotions. And one application, as they've kind of hinted at in the article, would be something like emoticons that are animated based on your own photo.
And to kind of point out that this is already happening, but it's kind of obvious. I hate when girls do this, but I think it's just part of the landscape of the younger generation. They use Snapchat filters, and they
Right.
have a couple of them that can make your eyes look bigger, so you look more, inhuman. They have ones that kind of either thin your face out, add sparklies, or smooth your skin out. It's that photo manipulation, but it's happening in real time with Snapchat. And then of course you take the photo, but it's very subtle, and you really have to have an eye for it to know what exactly it is they're changing. You're saying that they can do this with a photo, and it's there's probably still some work to be done on it, but they're saying that with a finished product, you can change it and it wouldn't look too odd, is what they're promising, right?
Right, for simple animations like, smirking, smiling, frowning, that sort of thing. Basic
Almost Harry Potter
emoticon
esque.
animation type stuff.
Almost Harry Potter esque with the moving photos.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good observation. This would make it easier to animate these sorts of things, but I don't think it's the end goal. I think there's more to it than this research and achievement would lead to. Um, so I wait and see how helpful this will be. I mean, you look at the 3D animated I guess emoticons from Apple with the iPhone X.
Mm-hmm.
What is that called? Animagic?
No,
I don't know.
Animoji or something.
Animojis, something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, animojis. Animated emojis capture what your face is doing, I guess turn you into an elephant that's doing the same thing. So this is in the same sort of vein. Um, but I'm curious, aside from all Skynet implications, where this sort of stuff will lead, because I've mentioned before, I think our our ethics have yet to catch up with our capabilities of being
You
able to
know,
go this
you know,
far.
you know who I want to shake my finger at, and it's not their fault. They do great work, and they do such good work that I have to shake my finger at them. Is that and I don't know if I get sued for this from Ellen DeGeneres, but the Ellen Show, they do clips sometimes where they take, actual clips, and then they either get someone to stand in or they edit it in some way. And like they have one where it's like the Pope, he's praying in front of an altar, and he like reaches out, grabs the cloth, and rips the cloth out from underneath, the altar. And it looks like he just did like, one of those goofy magic tricks where he pulled the cloth out from underneath something, and he turns around and he holds it up. And I've seen that circulated so many times, and everyone's like, did the Pope really just pull the cloth out from that altar and act like it was a magic trick? Like, people believed it. People believe it to a point where they share it and they go, look at what the Pope just did. And it was a segment from Ellen. And I've seen other clips from that show that, and of course she has a wide audience, so they share it like crazy. But, people are ready to believe, even if your brain says it's impossible for, the 86-year-old Pope to do a magic trick, that it looks so good, you just say, wow, the Pope just did a magic trick. That's cool.
Right. That's funny. You put it that way.
It just shows how receptive I think people are to photo manipulation without actually checking the source. And if they can do this, do this in real time and do it after the fact, then if you think fake news is a problem now, wait until they have photographic evidence of whatever it is they claim. And that's going to be a problem.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember such instance after 9/11 so many years ago was a lot of photos went online about, oh, I've got a photo of that, and it was a little easier to pick those out, but photo editing has always been pretty good and pretty subtle for a long time. But you're right, if it happens in real time, especially video reference, it'll be rough, and we gotta figure out where our ethics lie before that sort of technology becomes mainstreamer.
There was let's see, there's an article a couple months ago about how an artificial intelligence was able to essentially, because celebrities have so many photos of them, they were able to create completely new celebrities using existing celebrity features. So, they may pull, part of a nose shape from here, or a chin shape from there, eye shape there, eye color there. And they were able to make artificial people that you go, I've seen that person in a movie, but they were completely fake. They don't exist in real time. I think that might have been a presentation from like NVIDIA or something like that with their deep learning algorithm. And then I saw another one that was able to essentially put someone's face and mannerisms on another body, which that one Fast and Furious movie did that. It's,
Yes.
What is real is going to quickly start to fade away. And you're right. I think ethics is something that, you work in a university setting, and I would not be surprised if, the ethics of technology has to be discussed soon in these fields for people who are going to be working in them.
Absolutely. And I hope to be a part of that conversation, or at least to start hearing that conversation happening more and more. But yeah, you're right.
It would be
A lot of people can work on something and make it look amazing in a movie, but it's not real time, and it does take a lot of people. So when that becomes more automated and easier to accomplish, then there's going to be a lot more misinformation in the video.
Yeah, there's a reason that in the EU they have to clearly watermark every photo that's been of every model that's been touched up or redesigned.
Right.
They have to say, hey, this is not what a real person looks like. This is art. And yeah, it's funny to think that something as I think many people perceive as maybe a little bit useless as philosophy, maybe philosophy gets introduced back into technology just to help it advance.
Let's hope so.
Dariush, we are flat out of time. We did not get to any holiday recommendations, but folks, if you want to check out last month's interview with Dariush, I think we did a pretty good job about shopping for TVs, monitors, computers for the holiday experience. So check that out last month. Dariush, flat out of time, and the next time you'll be joining us is later in January, which we'll have CES to talk about. But yeah, Dariush, if people want to find out more about you and your things, where can they go?
They can find me on Twitter at Kush3D.
There you go, and we'll have a link to his Twitter right there in the show notes. So Dariush, until next time, thank you so much, and Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays. Take
All
care.
right, have a good one. Bye-bye. All right, and everyone else out there, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check us out tomorrow as we have our All Linux program. That's right, and we'll have Marcel Gagne, where we'll be talking all things Linux, distributions, and more. So be sure to check that out. And folks, until next time, have a great one. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.